The Japanese educational system is unique and different from the rest of the world. Schools are considered places where young minds are formed and prepared for the future, so the Japanese school system is extraordinarily strict and has some rules that seem quite absurd and unfathomable, but the Japanese tend to follow them. From extremely specific dress codes to mandatory classes even during vacations. Short skirts for female students. In Japan, it is customary for female students to wear uniforms, unlike public schools in Europe and America where children go to school in their everyday clothes with some restrictions. The young women in Japanese schools wear especially short skirts with long socks as part of their school uniform. This style with extremely short skirts is often inappropriately represented in certain media. Television programs, anime, and comics make it seem like all female students are forced to wear inappropriately short skirts to school, but this is not always the case. It may be a requirement of some schools, but it is not a mandatory attire in most of them. Fashion is an important factor influencing the way Japanese schoolchildren dress, just like anywhere else in the world. However, it is noteworthy that Japanese female students do not wear tights when wearing miniskirts. This is mainly because the Japanese think it is embarrassing to show legs with skirts or shorts when they are older. So young Japanese people wear miniskirts and socks because they think it is a kind of privilege during a time when they are young, which is why they also do not mind being cold in the miniskirt of the uniform, as it is a kind of statement, especially for high school students. Students never fail courses. This is because repeating or delaying a course is not very common in Japan. Here, students tend to advance in the educational system regardless of their grades. They are only made to repeat courses in rare and extreme cases. Additionally, the Japanese system not only emphasizes a student's grades but also considers their behavior, attendance, and participation in extracurricular activities and clubs. All these things usually positively affect a child's learning, so even if they are lazy in certain subjects, it is not a reason to hold them back. Probably for this reason, Japanese students are much more attentive and enthusiastic about learning than their peers in Western countries. Consequently, the report cards of Japanese students are quite different from those of students in Europe or America. They do not have to repeat courses for academic differences, and all the students in the class will progress through academic grades according to the age they are reaching. Romantic relationships are prohibited. In Japan, schools are places where students should focus on their studies and not be distracted by other things. That is why many high schools have a rule that prohibits romantic relationships between students both inside and outside of school. This rule is supported by parents and teachers who believe that high school students are too young to date and that it would affect their academic performance. Additionally, this rule also serves to protect female students from possible abuse by older men or adults who take advantage of them. However, some students defy this rule and secretly date their partners, risking being punished or expelled if discovered. This is how Japanese schools try to maintain professionalism and the safety of their students, although not everyone agrees with this rule. Students clean their classrooms. In Japan, there is no cleaning staff to take care of the classrooms, hallways, bathrooms, and other common areas. At the end of each day, students spend about 15 minutes doing OSOI, which means general cleaning, with brooms, vacuum cleaners, and cloths. The children sweep, dust, and mop everything they have used during classes. This custom has its origins in a 17th century philosophy that says a clear mind is achieved by maintaining a clean and orderly environment. Additionally, students learn to appreciate the people and objects that help them study and prepare for the future. It is also believed that if children are responsible for their own mess, they will avoid dirtying and damaging the facilities. That is why you will not see any Japanese students sticking gum under the chairs or scratching the desks, because they know they will have to clean it later. And not only do the children do the cleaning, but the teachers also join in and support them. Together, they clean the floor, shake out the chalkboard erasers, and even clean the toilets. This is how the Japanese take care of their school and their education. Saturday school. Can you imagine having to go to school not only from Monday to Friday but also on Saturdays? This is the reality for many Japanese students who cannot enjoy a full weekend like most children around the world. For a long time, Japanese schools operated 6 days a week and only had Sundays off. This was part of a very demanding and competitive educational system that sought to train the best students possible. However, in 1992, the Japanese government decided to change this policy and start eliminating Saturday classes. The goal was to create a more relaxed and flexible environment for students and give them more time for other activities. But this change was not applied uniformly throughout the country. Some schools continued to have Saturday classes at least once a month in the morning. Others took advantage of Saturdays to offer extra classes in subjects like math or science that are considered fundamental for the student's future. And others, due to the coronavirus pandemic that forced schools to close for several months, decided to make up for lost time by holding classes on Saturdays once activities resumed. Thus, nearly half of the primary and secondary students in Tokyo, the capital of Japan, still have to go to school on Saturdays at least occasionally. What do you think of this situation? Do you think it is fair or unfair for Japanese children? What would you do if you had to go to school on Saturdays? Prohibition of mobile phones. A few years ago, students in Tokyo could not bring their mobile phones to school. Teachers and authorities thought that electronic devices were a source of distraction that interfered with learning. However, everything changed when a strong earthquake shook the city of Osaka on the morning of June 18, 2018, leaving many parents worried about their children's safety. It was then that the Tokyo Board of Education decided that secondary and high school students could bring their mobile phones to school as long as the principals of each school authorized it. This way, students could communicate with their families in case of an emergency. Schools and institutes that allowed the use of mobile phones established rules and guidelines for students not to abuse them or use them inappropriately. In this way, mobile phones went from being a problem to being a useful tool in the Japanese educational system. Punctuality. Punctuality is a highly valued trait in Japanese culture. The Japanese strive to adhere to established schedules in all areas of their lives, whether at work, school, or home. For them, being late is a sign of disrespect and disinterest. Therefore, Japanese schools are very strict about student attendance and do not allow them to enter if they are late unless they have a very justified and verifiable reason. However, it is very rare for a student to miss a class due to tardiness, since Japanese children learn from a young age to be conscious of time and to plan their activities. Many of them also stay after class to participate in clubs and extracurricular activities that help them develop their skills and sense of belonging. The Japanese, in general, value time as a precious resource and do everything possible not to waste it or make others waste it. In Japan, there are no substitute teachers. In the Japanese educational system, there is no one to replace a teacher who is absent for some reason. Unlike other countries like the United States, where a substitute teacher is hired to cover the absence of the main teacher, in Japan, students have to attend class and do their homework on their own without the help of any teacher. Japanese students are expected to be able to learn autonomously and responsibly without needing someone to supervise or explain the material to them. This is a common situation in Japanese secondary schools when a teacher is sick or has a problem. Educational centers trust that students will behave calmly and respectfully and make the most of their time to review what they have learned. Students cannot dye their hair. Japanese school rules place a lot of emphasis on the natural appearance of students. Japanese secondary school girls are not allowed to dye their hair various colors or wear their natural hair if it is not straight and black. They are also prohibited from painting their nails or wearing jewelry. Schools believe that all these things distract students from their studies. However, in recent years, the school rule requiring all students to dye their hair black if it is naturally another color has caused a stir. This is required to create a uniform appearance for students. In Japan, Spring marks the beginning of the academic year, and during the 2021 school year, 7 public high schools in Tokyo still required students with natural non-black hair to dye it black. This rule was considered very controversial, and for the 2022 school year, it was completely abolished and is no longer in effect in any municipal school. However, this does not mean that for several decades, students were not required to dye their hair black to appease school authorities. In many schools, the 2-block haircut style, where boys shave the sides short and let the top grow, was also previously banned. Nonetheless, today, this is another rule that has also been abolished in high schools. Curfew at 10 p.m. In many parts of this Asian country, students cannot enjoy the night in public places. Instead, they must be home before it gets late. In fact, it is illegal for minors under 18 to be in public spaces after 10 p.m. This rule is not strictly enforced because minors usually go out with their parents, but if they are caught, they can get into trouble. The local government works with different sectors to ensure this rule is followed. For example, cinemas, arcades, and other places teenagers like do not allow them to enter after the curfew. Additionally, adults are asked to show their ID if they want to access these places. The purpose of this curfew is to prevent juvenile crime and protect young people from becoming victims. Adults are responsible and face sanctions if they do not respect the rule, but minors caught out at night will be taken by the police for guidance. The culture of greeting in Japan is very important and shows the respect one has for others. I think this should be the case worldwide. Japanese students always greet each other cheerfully and also greet their teachers. In fact, it is a rule that students must greet the teacher when they enter the classroom. This is how the class starts every day. Some Japanese schools also have a morning meditation practice for students and teachers. This helps them start the day with a positive attitude and good energy that accompanies them throughout the long hours of class. In Japan, you cannot choose how to address the teacher. You have to use the correct phrases and be polite. This is because respecting elders is an essential part of Japanese culture. From the youngest children to the elderly, everyone greets each other with the utmost respect. The most respectful way to greet and say good morning is "Ohayo gozaimasu," which means good morning formally. These are just some of the school rules in Japan. Let me know in the comments which rule you think is the best or which one you find the strangest. You can also check out our other videos that appear on the screen. Subscribe and activate the notification bell to not miss any episodes. See you next time.